Wishing all our viewers a very happy new year. Hi, welcome to Savi's Fashion Studio. I'm Savita. In this class, let's see how to make a hoodie or a hooded pullover. If you're new to our channel or if you're new to sewing, before watching this class, please watch our class on how to take body measurements and drafting basic body sloper, because that is the sloper we'll be using in this class. For this project, I'm using this beautiful cotton blend fleece fabric which has a brushed finish inside. This has a little stretch to it. You can use similar or any medium weight fabric. This fabric, the ribs used in this project and most of the tools used in this class can be bought on our website savisfashionstudio.com. If you're using this fabric, it is suggested to pre-shrink the fabric, that is soak it in water for a few hours and dry it in shade, because this will have some shrinkage, and avoid ironing on the fleece side. So let's start with the class. So here is the basic body block. You have already learned how to draft this in the previous classes. Here is the shoulder slope line, the chest line, bust line, waistline, and the full length. I have not marked the hip line here because this full length is just 1 inch below the hip length, and the full length I have kept is 23 inches. I'll be adding another 2 inches of rib, so the total length would be 25 inches. Now I'll only explain the changes that I made here. Now from the slope point we draw half of the arm round, but here I've added 1 inch extra, that is half arm round plus 1 inch extra, because this is a relaxed fit and I wanted the armhole to be a little bigger. On chest line I've marked quarter chest round plus 1.25 inches ease. This ease will give me an overall ease of 5 inches. You can give anywhere from 1 inch. From this ease point, I've drawn a straight line downwards. I'm not giving any shaping here. When we add the rib, this part will slightly gather. This measurement here is slightly bigger than the hip round measurement. So if I measure here, this is 11 and quarter, that is around 45 inches. So it's around 2 inches more than the hip round measurement, which will gather when we join the rib. The other change I've made is to the neckline. I've kept the neck width at 4.25 inches and the back neck depth at 1 inch and the front neck depth at 4.25 inches. Why I've kept the neckline wider is because this is a pullover and the neckline has to be big enough to be able to pull over your head. Just to cross check, if I measure the back neckline, I'm getting 4/3/8 and place the same measurement here and continue measuring the front neckline. Just walk your tape. So the neck measurement I'm getting is 11 inches. When you double that, because this is a half pattern, you get 22 inches, which is enough for the neckline to be pulled over the head. So that's about the body block. Now I'll be adding 1 centimeter seam allowance all around. I'm using this ruler to measure 1 centimeter because all the markings are there in this ruler. Similarly, add the seam allowance. Now I have drawn the back armhole and the front armhole in the same pattern. Now I'll be adding seam allowance to the back armhole. Once I cut that on fabric, then I'll be adding seam allowance to the front curve. Now cut the pattern as per the seam allowance marking. Similarly, I have my sleeves pattern ready here. Now the length of the sleeves that I've kept is till the wrist. Then I'll be adding another 2 inches of rib, and the sleeve opening is 2 inches more than the wrist round measurement. That is, I've kept 4 and quarter, which is 8.5 when you double it. Now here on this line, I mark the same measurement as kept here, that is half of the arm round plus 1 inch extra. That comes to this point. From here, added the ease that we have kept on the chest line, that is 1.25 inches. Draw the curves, and once you draw the curves, measure it and see if it matches with the curves on the body. If it is less or more, you will need to increase or decrease the ease and redraw the curves. I had to increase by 3/8 of an inch to get the exact measurement. Now we'll also be having front pockets, which are also called kangaroo pockets. I'll show how to draft that. Now I'll draft it on a different sheet of paper. To draw that pocket, I just need to copy this part, that is waistline and downwards, including the seam allowance. So I'll take this sheet of paper. The edge is straight. So this line is the seam line. I've just transferred the same line here. Now this is the waistline. Now divide this waistline into 3 parts. So it's approximately 3.75 inches thrice. And from the second point, draw perpendicular line. From this first point, mark the pocket open at around 5 to 6 inches. I'll keep it at 5.5. So wherever you get that 5.5 inch, do a marking. Connect those 2 points. So our pocket shape will be starting from here, this way and this way. Now here the seam allowance is already added, so we don't need to add again. I'll just mark it. Now add seam allowance for the pocket, that is we'll be adding 1 inch to this line, that is the pocket open, and here we'll be adding 1 centimeter. So there's a 1 inch marking on the scale which I'm using. I'll be adding 1 centimeter here. And from this point, connect with a 90-degree angle. I'll explain why I'm doing this. Now I'll cut the pattern as per the seam allowance line. Now why I drew this angle here is when you fold it 1 inch, this edge will nicely line up with the 1 centimeter seam allowance here. You don't want this fabric to come all the way till the edge here, because usually this garment is made with medium or heavyweight fabric and you don't want that bulk when you fold the seam allowance here. So this will only be a single layer when you fold, which you'll understand as we construct the garment. So when placing on the fabric, this is how you place it. This line will be parallel to the selvage. This is the grain line. Now let's see how to make the hoodie. The 2 measurements needed for the hoodie are the length and the width of the hoodie. So this is how you take the length. Keep the tip of the tape where your neckline is, that is little below the collarbone, and then let it go over the head and take the measurement here. So you can keep it a little loose also. So the measurement I got here is 29, and the other measurement is from ear to the other side, that is from behind. You can take it a little further if you want the hoodie to cover your face slightly. So I'll take it this much. So it's around 19 inches. I'll consider it as 20 inches when I draft the pattern. So draw a rectangle. Now this is the length I need and this is the width. This is a half pattern and this will be the front part and this will be the back. So I've got 14.5 inches and 10 inch. Now this line will be the top and this part will be connecting to the neckline of the garment. On this line, mark the center. And this line divide it by 3. So that comes to around 4 3/4. Now connect these 2 points. Now minus the back neck depth, that is 1 inch, from the front neck depth, that is 4.25 inches. So it would be 3.25 inches. Mark that upwards from this point. That is the difference between front and back neck depth. Now from that point connect to the corner here. Now when I measured the back neckline, I got 4 3/8. Mark the same starting from this point. Now we'll draw the curve till this point which we marked. We'll be drawing the back curve which will be very slight curve. So you can use the straight part of your armhole curve ruler. Then flip it and use this part to draw the front curve. So let the curve not go all the way till the end. Blend the curve to this line in this way. And make it smooth here. So this is the part which connects to the neckline. Now once you do this, you need to measure this and ensure that you get the measurement same as the neckline, because that's where it will be connected. Now here when we measured the back and front, we got 11 inches and that's what we need to get here too. So I'll place 11 here and walk the tape along the curve. So I'm getting around 1/4 inch less. Mark that. Now from this new point, blend it to the front line anywhere. Now in case when you measure, you get this more than your neckline, then you can reduce from here and bring this inside. Now we'll do the head part. I'm using this ruler again. You can do freehand also. Just get a nice smooth curve. So this is how it will be. You can keep this straight or give slight shaping. Make sure this point is at a 90-degree angle and then blend it. Pattern is done. Now add seam allowance. The seam allowance here should be same as the seam allowance you have given to the neckline. So we'll keep it 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter here also. Only at the front we'll add 1 inch because we'll be folding it inwards. So we'll add 1 inch there and then cut as per the seam allowance. So we have got a body pattern, the sleeves pattern, pocket and the hoodie. Now let's cut the fabric. Soon after drafting your patterns, do some notches so that makes it easy while sewing. So I'm doing a notch at the waist. This will help when you connect the back and front together at the side seams. You can do a notch where you start sewing in the side for the shoulder seam. Similarly, a notch for the hood where the back part ends, a center notch for the sleeve and for the side seams. For this project I am using this beautiful cotton blend fleece fabric. The inside has fleece in it and it's very soft, and it also has Lurex yarns. Lurex is actually a brand and it has become synonymous with the metallic yarns in the fabric. I'm not very sure if the metallic yarns here are actually Lurex, but it's called as cotton fleece with Lurex. Just to give you an idea, I'm showing you the high quality Lurex embroidery threads that we have in stock. These are pure silver metallized embroidery threads. These are aluminum metallized embroidery threads. They also have gold metallized threads, but we do not have that in stock. Currently in India, Gutermann markets Lurex threads. This is just for your information. For this, I need 1¼ meter of fabric. So I'm cutting 1¼ meters of fabric from this. Now during the manufacturing and storing process, crease is formed on both sides. This is a tube fabric, so it's not open on either side. So you can see at these folds, deep creases are formed. So when you're cutting the fabric for making the garment, try to avoid this crease. You don't want this line to come all the way in the center of your garment. So you can cut this fabric open on one side and then fold accordingly, or you can keep these creases together, that is crease on crease. So the crease is here, so you can lay your pattern on this side and on the other side, avoiding the crease. And also please pre-shrink the fabric as there will be some shrinkage in the fabric. So soak it for a couple of hours and then dry it. So I'll be laying my pattern now. Before cutting the fabric, plan how you want to lay the pattern so that you utilize the fabric in the most efficient way. I'll cut this hood here, I'll place the sleeves here, and as this is to be on fold, I'll place it here and I'll get my back here. Then with the leftover fabric, I'll fold as much as needed for the front 2 pieces and then cut. So whatever is remaining can be used for some other project. Whichever fabric you're using, if it has a stretch, keep the maximum stretch to the width of the garment. Once you place the pattern, place some weight or pin before marking. I'm using this water erasable pen for marking all around the pattern. I've tested it on this fabric and the markings go off when washed. Before using such pens, always test on a scrap piece of same fabric because there are different blends of fabric and this may not be suitable for all the fabrics. Make a mark wherever the notches are. I hope you are able to see the markings. So I'll cut this first and then do the sleeve marking. Make sure the center line of the sleeve is parallel to the selvage. So you can just measure from the fold or from the selvage to the center line and see it's same throughout. And if you see here it's a little less, then you just have to move it slightly to adjust. Now I need to cut the front. You can just use your tracing wheel, or if you do not want to retain this pattern, you can cut off the back and then cut the fabric as per the front. That's what I'll be doing now. So I'm adding seam allowance to the front and cutting the pattern as per the front armhole shape. And the same thing I'll be doing for the neckline as well. I'm doing the same for the neckline. Now I'll be cutting the fabric for the front with the leftover fabric. Again, this is to be kept on fold. So I've got my back here, my front, two sleeves. Now if you find it difficult to identify which sleeve goes to which side, then do notches. For the back usually we do 2 notches, and for the front it's 1 notch. The deeper curve always is to the front and the other curve is to the back. I've got the 2 pieces for the hoodie. Now take your front and we'll mark the pocket position. Take the pocket pattern, fold all the seams in this way. Leave the bottom seam as it is and place it to the fold of the front, aligning the lower edges. And with a chalk or a marking pen, just do a small dot here and at this end. Now turn and do the same marking on the other side. And also do a notch at the center front. Similarly, do a small notch to the center front of the pocket. I'll be using my 4-thread overlock to finish this garment. If you don't have a serger, you can sew it with your sewing machine. If you are using a stretchy fabric, then you can use zigzag stitches on all the seams. Just keep the width a little lesser, or if your machine does not have a zigzag stitch, you can use your regular sewing machine but keep the stitch length a little longer. Maybe you can keep 3 to 3.5 and use the appropriate needle. So if you are also finishing the garment with a serger, you don't need to keep 1 centimeter seam allowance. You can reduce it a little, but I'll be slightly trimming it off as I serge. I'll be serging at the shoulder, then attaching the sleeves and attaching the 2 pieces of the hoodie with the serger. First I'll iron and ready the pocket so that it's easier when we sew. We had kept 1 inch seam allowance here. Just fold it 1 inch and iron. Now to do that, I follow this method. I have cut a 1 inch strip of a little thick cardboard. I place it at the 1 inch distance from the edge. This is not necessary, but it's helpful. Now when I fold, if I fold to this edge, it gives me a 1 inch fold. I'll fold it this way. Usually I use steam ironing for such foldings, but here because of fleece, I'm not using steam ironing. Also, you can use a thin cotton fabric on top and iron it further so that the crease is nicely formed. And this layer also protects the main fabric. Do the same for this side. Similarly, iron these seams, that is, fold at 1 centimeter and iron, and also do the same on these 2 sides. I will turn to the right side and give it a good press again. So this is pressed and ready. Take your hood fabric. In the hood, fold 1 inch at the front. This is the front part. And iron. Do the same for the other piece of the hoodie. Now we'll stitch this step by step. First, open the seam that you have ironed and sew at 1 centimeter till here. That is only the top part and the back part. Don't sew this, keep this open. I'll be serging this part. I have serged this part, and this is a 4 thread overlock. This kind of saves time because sewing and serging is done together. Now take this single layer and serge this edge. Starting from one end, go all the way to the other end. This fabric does not fray and does not need serging, but it gives a neat finish inside. No need to serge this lower part because that will be anyway serged later when we join it to the neckline. So we'll only serge this part. So I've serged this edge. Now fold it as we had ironed earlier. Turn the seam to one side. Fold. Now starting from one end, we'll be sewing 1 inch in from the edge such that this fabric layer connects to this. So all the way till you reach the other end. I'm using this Gutermann Ticket 50 thread for this, as this is slightly thick fabric. This thread is very strong. Also, just for your information, if you're sewing very stretchy fabrics, you can also use such threads. It's a premium quality Gutermann sewing thread. So when you're sewing with stretchy fabrics, you can use such stretchy threads which will stretch along with the fabric. This can be used in the needle as well as the bobbin. I'm using a size 12 needle. Before starting to sew your garment, always stitch on a scrap piece of fabric and see if the stitches are forming correctly. I have increased the stitch length to 3.5 as this is slightly stretchy fabric. Now first we'll be sewing the pocket opening. We had folded by 1 inch, so we'll be sewing to the edge here and then we'll be sewing another stitch inwards. You can follow the guide on your machine if you have. So I'm not placing this edge at 1 inch, I'm placing it slightly less so that the edge is caught in the stitch. Now keeping this stitch as the guide, do another stitch. Once you press, it will stay flat. Do the same for the other side. Now open the front and place the pocket with the center notches matching. This is the top part of the pocket. Fold the seam and place the corner at the pocket placement marking that we had done on the front part, and see the other side also matches. So it's matching. So place it in this way and you can pin it or just hold firm and do a edge stitch, that is 1/8 inch in from the edge. I am using my edge foot, that is CR18, but if you don't have this you can manage with a regular presser foot. This just makes it easy. I've changed the presser foot, rotate the hand wheel and lower the needle by hand slowly and see if the needle hits the presser foot. If it hits, you have seen in our previous videos how to correct the alignment. So I'm placing it a little forward so that I'll stitch back and then come forward to avoid too many stitches, locking stitches there. Lower the needle. Place it nice and straight. Trim off all the excess threads then and there. Now similarly stitch in the sides. We are keeping this part open and we are stitching only the side. Do the same on the other side. Now I'm changing to the regular foot and doing another stitch on all these 3 sides. This is optional, you can just give 1 stitch or you can do a double stitch. Now I'll keep the first stitch as the guide and do a second stitch. The twin stitches looks nice. Now sew the hem of the pocket and the front together. Now if you see this, I've got little excess in the pocket, that is due to some stretching. Maybe during the ironing the fabric has stretched a little. I'll just trim it off and then do the stitch at the hem. Now do a straight stitch at the bottom. This is just to connect the pocket and the front fabric. Make sure you don't stretch the fabric as you stitch. Now the front pocket is sewn. Now sew the shoulder of front and back at 1 centimeter, or if you're serging, serge the shoulder seams. You're placing it right on right. I've joined the shoulders. Now take your sleeves and once again make sure which sleeve goes to which side, or if you have the notches then you can keep as per the notches. So this sleeve is for this side. Now place it right on right, keeping the center notch of the sleeve to the shoulder seam, and let the seam go towards the back. You can pin here if you want. Now when starting to sew, start from one of the edges, that is here I'm starting from the front. Again you will be sewing it 1 centimeter in from the edge because that's the seam allowance given. I'll be serging this part. So I'll finish the serging and show it to you. Similarly do the other sleeve. So the sleeves are attached. If you do a 4-thread overlock, you don't need to again sew with the sewing machine, as this stitch is strong enough, and also it gives a little stretch when sewn to the stretchy fabric. Now turn to the wrong side. Now fold the sleeves, placing right on right, and starting from the sleeve open, lock and stitch all the way at 1 centimeter seam allowance till the bottom hem. Meanwhile, when you read this part, that is the place where sleeves and the body is joined, that is under the armhole, make sure these two seams match. What you can do is you can place these together, do a small stitch here so that you don't miss that point. I'll be again serging this part. So I'll do a small stitch here under the armhole so that the seams match. And then you can continue the side seam stitching. This is one of the tips if you always don't get the seams to match under the armhole. Now I'm serging from the sleeve open to the bottom hem. Do the same for the other side too. So the side seams are stitched. Now take your hoodie. Now I'll be sewing this part. So we have folded at 1 inch and stitching here, that is around 3/4 inch in from the edge, so that this is attached to this fabric. So you can follow the 3/4 inch mark on your sewing machine if you have, or you can do something like this. Cut a thick paper for 3/4 inch and then stitch to this edge. After sewing a few stitches, just ensure that the two layers are attached. So this is attached now. Now you can do another stitch close to the first stitch. So I'll just keep the previous stitch as a guide and do another stitch. Now we'll be attaching the hoodie to the neckline of the garment. Now this part will go to the back center of the neckline. So take your body, keep the shoulder seams together and do a small notch at the back center, that is back neckline. Similarly, keep the shoulder seams together and do a center notch in the front neckline. Now the center back of the hood goes to the center notch on the back neckline. Pin it in place. Keep the edges together, and the front edge of the hood goes to the center notch on the front neckline. Pin it if you need. So you can start stitching from the front center, go all the way and reach the back, and then repeat the same for the other side, or you can start from one of the fronts, go all the way and come back to the front center. So other edge of the hood front will align in this way. So both the front edges of the hood is centered to the front neckline in this way. If by any chance you find the neckline of the garment has stretched and does not match with the hood, then what you can do is you can do a easing stitch all around the neckline and then match the hoods. That should work. Now pin all around if you want to. I'm just pinning at the center back and the center front, and I'll be serging these edges. If you're not using a serger, you will need to sew at 1 centimeter in from the edge. hood and the back center of the neckline matches exactly. If it does not match, then see if the neckline is stretched or if there is some mistake in the pattern. So I've read the center back. Now we'll continue towards the front. With your finger you must feel to see if there are no wrinkles or extra layers of fabric there. I'll slightly overlap the stitches here. So the hood is sewn. Now we'll conceal this back seam so that it does not show when you wear, but this is optional again. I've turned the garment inside out. Now we'll be sewing this bias tape to the neckline of the back so that when you wear the garment, the seam does not show. So I've taken a bias tape which is 1 inch more than the back neckline. I'll open one of the folds and sew it only to the seam so that the stitch does not show on the garment. I'm sewing it only to the seam. So I'm starting from one shoulder seam to the other in the back neckline. And I'm sewing on the crease line that is already there on this bias tape. Now we had sewn the tape from the hood side. Now we'll turn it and attach the other part of the tape to the body. Only this stitch will be shown from the right side. Now I want to stitch from the top as that would look nice, as you can align exactly to this neckline, but then it's difficult to sew folding this bias tape and sewing from the right side. So what I'll do is I'll put a basting stitch here first from the wrong side. Basting stitch is a temporary stitch with a longer stitch length. So I'll do that and then do the stitching from the right side. Meanwhile, I'll also attach the brand label. Center the label to the center of the back neckline and cover the edges with the tape and then do the stitching. So the stitch I'm doing now is a temporary stitch, and then from the right side I'll do the actual stitch. Make sure there are no wrinkles, just keep it nice and flat. So I'm stitching 3/8 of an inch from this first stitch, 1/8 less than half an inch. Now before I read the center of the neckline, I'll place the brand label and then do the stitching. Our students can use this Made by Me label, which is created exclusively for our students. So there are different colors available. When you read the other end, fold the excess bias tape inside and then stitch. So this is how it would look from the inside. Now we'll do a top stitch and then remove the stitch. Now I'll do it from the front center itself so that this seam also attaches to the body. Again, this is optional. You can do without a top stitch also. So I'll give a top stitch around 2/8 inch in from the edge. So this is the front center. I'm turning the seam towards the body, that is downwards, and stitching 1/4 inch in from the edge. I'm just following this edge of the presser foot. I'm placing it as a guide. Make sure you're not catching any of the fabric layers under. You just need one layer of fabric. Push everything aside and stitch. And with the finger you can feel and see that the seam is caught in the stitch. Before that, don't forget to change to a smaller stitch length. In the earlier step we had changed to a basting stitch, that is a longer stitch length. When you reach here where you have the basting stitch starting from at the back, put the needle in, turn, and then we'll be stitching at that level. Now follow the basting stitch at the back neckline. Again, when you reach the other end of the basting stitch at the back, stop there, move up a little, and then again align the foot to the neckline edge and continue sewing to the front. all through make sure the seam is turned downwards. Now I've reached the point where I started. Do a reverse stitch and lock. So I've done the top stitch. Now just remove the basting stitch that you have done at the back. As it is not locked, it's easy to remove. Just use your seam ripper or trimmer. Now the final step is attaching the rib. Measure the hem. Now here it is 22.5, so when you double it, it is 45 inches. The rib can be 1/4 measurement less than the hemline, or you may wrap the rib around your abs where the top will finally sit and see how tight or loose you want, and accordingly you can cut, because different ribs stretch differently because of the thickness and the softness. So depending on that, you'll have to cut the rib. For this, I'm cutting the rib around 10 inch less than the hemline. So I have matching rib fabric here, or I can also use a contrast like black. I'll be using this gray matching rib. So I want the rib to be 2 inches in width, and I'll be folding it. So the total rib width would be 4 inches plus 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter seam allowance. So I'll cut around 5 inches, and the length, as I told earlier, it would be 10 inches lesser than this. Similarly, for the sleeves, I want this rib to sit here at the wrist. So you can take the exact measurement of the wrist plus add the seam allowance of 2 centimeters. That's what I'll be doing. So it is 6 inches plus 2 centimeters. Ready width would be 2 inches. So I'll double that. That is, the width I'll take is 4 inches plus 2 centimeters. These rib fabrics come as a tube, so it's closed on both sides. This is not only for the neckline, sleeve or hem. You can also make an entire garment with the rib fabric. I'll fold this and cut together. So I'm marking 5 inch. So what I need is around 35 inches. So as there are 2 layers here, I'll mark it 17.5. So this is the waistband. Similarly cut for the sleeves. So for one of the sleeves I can get here, because the width is the same that I want, 5 inches. And length I want is 6 inches plus 2 centimeters. I have got it here. So I'll cut one more of this. So I've folded this and I'm taking one more piece from one of the sides here. Now in the rib you can make out the right and wrong side. When you get the rib, the right side will be on top. Place it right on right and stitch at 1 centimeter in from the edge. I'll be serging this. So I'll serge all the 3 pieces. So if you're not using a serger, stitch the seams here. Now keep the seams together in this way and then turn this over. So the seams are inside. Do the same for the other. Do the same for the waistband. Now at the hem here we already have the center notch for the back and the front. Now take the rib. This is the seam. Hold it together. And the other side, do a small marking. That is, we are equally dividing this into 4 parts. Then keep that marking to the seam here and mark the other 2 parts. Now place the rib on one of the seams and you will be stretching the rib as you sew it. So keep the next marking to the center and then sew it 1 centimeter seam allowance. So the rib will go all around. I'll be serging this edge. Similarly for the sleeves. So the rib is serged to the garment. Now the final step is to do a top stitch, that is keep the seam upwards and do a top stitch on this fabric, maybe 1/4 inch in from the edge here. So I'm doing a top stitch here. I'm using my 1/8 inch edge foot, that is right edge foot, and align this edge to the edge here where the rib is joined. As you stitch, make sure the seam is turned upwards, that is towards the left. Here it would be too thick, so do it slow. You can lift your presser foot slightly and then continue. So the seam stays upwards. Now do the same for the sleeves. Sleeves could be a little tricky because it's a small opening, but just pull one layer and make sure you're not catching any other layers and place it under. Once you lower the foot, once you place the fabric under the foot, make sure no other layer is being caught and focus little by little. Again, the seam is turned towards the sleeve, that is upwards or towards my left, and stitch to the edge. Do this little by little, slightly stretch and do the same for the other sleeve. So the garment is ready now. Let me wear it and show. So this is how it looks. If you make one, please do share the image with us. Once again, wish you all a very happy and prosperous new year. Spread peace, love and happiness.